Recording has started, so it's probably a sign that we can get started. So hello to everybody that's joined us on this, the longest day of the year, as I said. I'm really delighted to be hosting this particular Twilight as part of the NSEAD conference series. And this is the Twilight called Thisability, a sense of being, with our guest artist, Saranjeet Birdie. If you're joining us today live, welcome, and I hope you've got your drawing materials at the ready. If you're watching this back on the recording, welcome to you too, and still have your drawing materials to hand. I do actually know that this will be a really inspiring and thought-provoking session, as I had the privilege and pleasure to have worked with Saranjeet back in the cold lockdown month of February 2021, when he was an artist in resident at Merle, which is one of the University of Reading museum sites, which is where I work. He ran a magical online workshop actually for myself and my second year art specialist trainee students, teacher trainee students, which really did take us out of our solitary existence of working at the kitchen table with art and our screens on. And you really did transform our thinking about how we could use our bodies as art tools. It was truly wonderful. And I'm so pleased that he could join us today. So brief introduction, and then I'll hand over. Saranjeet is a practicing artist and dancer, but he can correct me on that, but I think I'm right. And has been involved in education and community art projects for many, many years. What he's going to talk about today is part of development and a concept called Thisability, which is an exploration of the body as a drawing tool, but with a particular focus on its use in the rehabilitation for people with impaired movement. And as he says, it's literally the sense of being. So welcome to you, Saranjeet. I'll hand over to you. I'm really looking forward to it and joining in. I have my drawing materials at the ready, and then I'll come back after your presentation and help to field questions and for the Q&A session. Fantastic. So I hand over to you.
Okay, can everybody hear me fine? Yep. Yes, again, thanks for the opportunity really to platform this thing which started many years ago. This ability, a concept, an exhibition actually took form in about 2010, but my thinking around how the body can move, and even if the body's contorted and ugly, how it can move and be beautiful, or if you're an elegant dancer, they never had a difference to me. So I observed this for many years through dance classes, and then as I was training as an architect, I was very interested in drawing as architects are. So this whole analytical approach between drawing and dance emerged, and sort of developed into a concept and an art concept when I moved from design through to the art sector, which was always a life plan really, to move into that sort of more artistic practice space. What I'm going to do is just go through a quick PowerPoint presentation. It's got little bullet or milestones that I hit on the way, so I'm going to go quite quickly through it. And later on in the QA, I can always come back to one of those slides if anybody wants to look or ask a question about them. Is that all right? Yeah. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Share. Okay, so let's go back to, here we go, right, so this was an intervention I did back in 2020, I think, maybe before, in 2019. It was actually Leonardo da Vinci's anatomical drawings were coming to Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. So I snuck in, and early morning, before the cleaners were there, did have permission, and I drew one of Leonardo's sketches using my foot, and again exploring the idea of the muscles of the leg, and a super artist, but actually trying to retrace those drawing steps, but actually using the limb that you're looking at. Oh, next. Oh, it's not doesn't seem to be going to my next. Okay, so yes, I started in architecture. We use drawing a lot, from sketchy drawings through to working drawings, and now very often computer drawings. Parallel to that, I've been a dancer since I was 17, and I always look for the parallels between music, dance, and architecture. This was my sort of pet interest for many years. And these were videos created in 1999, when I sort of left design field full-time and went into creating, using the video medium. Then back in 2007, from 2005, 2007, I started to explore how the body could be used in different ways. I actually discovered by accident that I could actually draw with various limbs without actually practicing. I practiced with my dominant hand, went to life drawing classes for many years, but I found one day that I could draw reasonably well using my feet, my elbows, and I was working part-time as an architect then. But when I left, someone suggested, well, you could probably use this ability to work with people with disabilities and rehabilitation and drawing. And so I shifted and did an arts in health qualification. And following from that grew an interest. I worked in hospitals and disability centres, and I really enjoyed working one-to-one with clients that were in these centres, and they range from paraplegic to people with brain injury and autism, blindness. So within these workshops, I challenged my own capacities, as well as working with them to develop their own. So an exhibition resulted with my drawings and their drawings side by side, without any sort of this one's better than that, because it was the amount of effort that each of us put in that interested me. This was a piece called Drawn and Quartered, creating 4 drawings with elbows and feet, and creating a video. I've always liked video, and it's part of I suppose, my need to perform and use dance. I think I enjoy the performance aspects of it, and now more the performative aspects of creating an artwork. So this is again example of the clients I've worked with, blind, and the chap here who's paraplegic. We've made a gadget for him so he could paint with something attached to his head, but he really loved it. So this was I normally worked with video. It was safer, but then I started to risk more. So I went out in the public and started to draw large-scale architectural spaces. So what I call this work is a whole series called Limitations, and I started to test the limits of my body, i.e. the longest limbs, and the limit of vision in these big urban spaces, and trying to pull those together. So it's called Limitations, this whole series, and I often go out into the public in shopping centres, and you might see me in one of yours, we don't know, one day possibly. And this was a really challenging drawing. It's a church in the middle of Birmingham. It's a 12-hour drawing which was done over 3 weekends, I think, 3-hour drawings each. This was really interesting. While I was doing it one day, looking down, drawing away, there were 2 chaps standing behind me watching. And as I sort of stepped back, I realised one who was a double amputee, he had no arms, and they just watched, and there was no criticism or anything. I think they understood what was going on, and I had an empathy with them immediately. In this drawing, you'll see some figures done in blue. So I tend to draw these as real figures when they come along watching the drawing happen, often drawing portraits of them into the solid buildings that are drawn in brown. I then went and challenged myself even further, did an Arts Council supported project working with the University of Birmingham. I wanted to get hold of their fossil samples and skeletons and try and draw in different ways. So this ranges from doing a scorpion fossil on the left to a full orangutan skeleton on the right. And the skeleton took several sessions to do. And the strange thing is, when I pick these sketches up and put them against the model or the real fossil, I'm centimeters away from the actual height and size, which is again quite an interesting thing. Alongside the drawings, I had a series of work presentations to the students. These were bioscience students, and so I worked alongside the lecturers. I spoke about art and movement and what happens in my process, and they spoke about muscles and limbs in orangutans and people climbing trees. So fascinating joint venture. I then did a presentation to the Primate Society of Great Britain. This was 2016. And I thought I would try, rather than linear drawing, something with shading. So I called it Drawing on Darwin. And it's actually a tracing over a photograph. But I wanted to use tone and just using feet, which was quite fun to do, and had people working alongside. Moving on, I did quite a long, about I think a year and a half with Sense. It was on a project called Sensibility, and working with complex needs, blind, deaf at birth, and also with the elderly in a nursing home. And the idea was to make a sensory maze. So I really enjoyed working with people with severe difficulties in movement and pain thresholds, and working with them to overcome them. And I think art itself has lots of power to move through, as opposed to detailed therapy. I think art cuts through in a different way, which fascinates me. This lady here, she was blind, and I think she was aspiring to be an architect. She was partially blind, partially deaf, and we arranged the space so that she could design a floor plan of a building. Moving on to public artworks, I nabbed my mum in a shopping centre once and made her sit down for an hour while I sketched her. But it was a performance, so I dressed up in a suit like an architect and carried a briefcase with me. So that was that was for Sense, part of a festival week. Working with people on traditional drawing workshops and out in the public, again not in institutional spaces. This was a project called Bones and Buildings, combining what I was doing with drawing and architecture. And then moving into gallery spaces, where this current work is a series called Mapping Bones, and that's progressing quite well. I moved from drawing orangutans to a full-scale skeleton, and that's the full drawing in different ways. The skull drawn with pencil in the mouth, the legs drawn with knees, and feet drawn with feet. These were workshops I've done with different groups. One was called, it's an organisation called Draw to Perform, and that's in London and Brighton. And by and large art students, adults, very creative environment where they actually do full performance drawings, right, rubbing charcoal, using their bodies all over the walls and things, and that was wonderful. On the left is a series of workshops I gave in a school in Delhi. They were interested in how primary children could look at doing things in different ways, and again that was a great opportunity to go there and work with the children. Yeah, so that was Mapping Bones. Again, I video the work because people don't recognize, just by looking at the drawing, the process behind it, and I think that's part of the work. It's a bit like Jackson Pollock. Part of his process was watching him actually paint those rhythmic paintings, and I think this will be part of the work as it progresses. And then I've developed another work. Again, it's a series. Mapping Bones is a series, and this was one called Remembrance. A friend of mine tragically passed away. He committed suicide in 2019, and I created a piece around that. And I work with musicians in Brighton. A lot of my collaborations, I'm very, clued up on preparing for it. But when we collaborate on a live performance, I insist on improvisation and a spontaneous response. That was the drawing that we talked about. These are just standard drawings. I love doing life drawing sessions, drawing architecture. So these are just dominant hand drawings and sketches. But these are where I moved my foot drawing to. All of these done with the feet. And I actually wanted to enter Portrait Artist of the Year, and landscape artist, and I was using my feet to draw. But it's a huge competition working with colour against the other artists, so I tried some colour work in the top two. And that's it. So I do drawing, art workshops, arts in health, drawing performance, gallery installation, and public engagement. And just quickly going back, the last point. So Thisability, working with people with severe disabilities, it's the notion of having an empathy with the people that I worked with and understanding where they are. But my notion was that between ability, disability, and superability, that this is a continuum, and we may at any time of our lives land on severe disability or mild disability. So it was that was it. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to just come out of my share screen. How do I do that? Unshare. I'm not sure how I unshare now. Can you unshare me?
There we are. That's unshared now, Sandy.
Be back. Thank you. Just right. So I think that was 15 minutes, or is it? Yeah. Well, probably a bit quicker. Yeah.
Thank you, Saranjit. Are we moving into the practical bit?
Yeah, I think we can. There's a I think I'm ahead of time at the moment, aren't I?
Well, no, it's just there's a question in the chat, a couple of questions that I could ask you now. I don't know if that's
yes, yeah.
Okay. Yes. So Liz was asked. Well, Liz, do you want to ask, or do we not have that facility? Sorry, I'm making an assumption, Diane, because I know that happened to me on one of these sessions.
Yeah, we can. We can ask Liz to answer live. I can select that now.
Is that right, Liz?
Let's see if she'll come on. I don't know, we might be having a few issues with the Zoom. So yeah, I've sent it over, but whether it's reached Liz or not, I'm not entirely sure.
Can she use the chat or?
Yeah, so she sent a question in, so maybe Susie, best for you to read that one out.
No problem. Okay. I'll ask the question. So Liz she basically said your work's really inspiring. Thank you for sharing it. And it really is. It's fantastic to see it all over again, I have to say. I've got questions too. Have you found that working with groups and perception of individuals as to their ability to draw changes when challenged to work with different parts of their bodies?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think when people that I've engaged with, if they've had a stroke or they've got inherent disability, and I think I get empathy when I start challenging myself in front of them and show them that I'm on their side, that I know it's difficult. and they get it immediately. So if I think just went in and did a workshop with them and said, I want you to try and draw in this manner, without me really understanding how hard they're working. I think when you try and do something and it demonstrates you put as much effort in that they will put, and it's not immediately obvious when you see them that they're putting effort in, but believe me that they're climbing mountains to do a very small movement. And so I learned to observe micro movements and sort of work with them really.
Yeah, and actually I guess because I was thinking about the fact that I love all of your examples. I love your mum in particular, and whether she was happy with the end product.
Well, my mum's old school, when you're going to get a proper job, come on.
Well, you were dressed up like you're about to go to work, so maybe that was halfway there.
No, but I think she's chuffed really, but she's with the old school, they never expressed any sort of huge emotions,
Well,
like
I suppose that's the thing. You were talking about lots of it. Well, you showed photographs of lots of different examples of location-based work and site-specific. I love the work outside the cathedral, was it, that you showed, and then obviously the one with your mum, and really interesting working with that sort of juxtaposition of the students, the science students and the art, and actually the similarities of work. But I guess a link to Liz's question is that ability to really encourage and motivate people who probably have a can't do because that's what they've been told in their lives, or that's what they assume. How do you go about encouraging this sense of being to move beyond the physical limitations?
Yeah, I think one of the things I observed, like going into disability centres or in wards, were that the staff that were there for maybe a couple of years, they'd been there, and they started off from a creative, maybe an art course or something, and they got involved in rehabilitation, and that most of their duties were care duties. So they'd lost a little bit of a spark and excitement about the creative act, and 70% of their day is actually caring for that. And I think coming in as a one workshop, a two workshop, or a monthly workshop artist, you just got this freshness, and it fires up the staff as well as the clients. But I call them clients and customers. That's because what the centres refer them to. I don't know about terminology, you probably get it mixed up. But I think the one thing I've learned, that any staff member or supporter who's not fully engaged in that activity has an energy which can actually annihilate all the efforts you're making. So whoever comes into the room, I insist that they join in and they actually give themselves that time to focus and let go a bit. And so I think the motivation, although there's a one-to-one thing happening, if we're in a group in a room, I want everybody to really take that activity fully on board. It's really, I don't know, you must have come across it, Susie, in teaching scenarios when there's one pupil or one person who's, for some reason, there's really negative, and the energy of the room can actually be just pulled down, and you spend all your session trying to say what's wrong with you. Everybody else is really hyped up. So I think that's the thing I would ensure, that a lot of these sessions people have carers, and the carers must have that same enthusiasm, and beyond, everybody's on the same side, the same energy.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting. There's lots more questions coming up, but actually I've reminded myself of our schedule. But it's nice just to quickly sort of touch upon a couple of the questions following your presentation. But we are going to now move into the artist-led workshop until 5:15. I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, and then we can come back to these final these questions towards the end, because there's a lot of really interesting things there. So I think I'm staying on camera to join you with the drawing. I have got my art materials.
Okay. So I mean, I sometimes work with drafting tape and masking tape. We strap pencils onto our elbows and things, but you know, I'm aware that everybody's probably got different equipment around and may not have one thing or the other. So I'm similar to what we did on the drawing diversity one. The first explorative drawing I wanted to do was just creating an abstract drawing. I'll just go through my thing. Yeah, using your least dominant hand and your dominant hand, but just moving to abstract shapes. I might just put some music on. I think you may hear it through my sound. If you got your own music, play music. But we'll do it for about sort of 10 minutes or so. So it's just using the pencil with different hands and just becoming aware of what's happening in terms of sensation, working slowly and not necessarily just going wild, but working slowly and becoming aware of what's happening with those sensations. So it's an abstract, almost doodling, I suppose. And let's go for it. So you can divide. I sometimes divide the sheet in half. So I might sort of work with my left hand on the left side and the right hand. But feel free to jumble those up and see if you can discern which mark making is your left or your right. Which marks are actually more appealing? The ones that are controlled or the uncontrolled ones? So yeah, so it's just an abstract sketch to get used to moving the pencil or pen or biro. Or yeah, okay, and we'll go for about 10 minutes. I'll see if I've got some music in the background. Can I share? I don't know if I can share sound on this. Oh, actually, I can. Yeah, I should be able to hear this.
Angie, to you, sorry, I'm interrupting. Are you,
Yeah.
do you agree you're not going to put the screen down a bit? We can see what you're doing. You just want us to concentrate on our own. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more about what you are doing, not what I'm doing. I don't think that. So it's you can work with the beat. I always enjoy working with music. You know, coming from a dance background, I'm a listener and feeler. But if you're thinkers and visual, it doesn't matter. You know, you won't play the music necessarily. You can turn it off. So that's it really. So for 10 minutes, just create. It's a shame we can't see everybody working. Then I think that's the appeal with the live thing. You can see everybody, but now it's just working in our own space. Yeah. So 10 minutes, just free up. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Don't know if you can actually hear that. Yeah. So I'm just changing hands, maybe trying to mirror something that I've done with the right. I think at this stage I'm more interested in the quality of a line as opposed to lots of shading and modelling of anything. You may even want to try mirroring text, as Leonardo used to do. Okie dokie. Yeah. Oops, let's turn this off. It's playing. Okay, great. Yeah, so I mean, I've just worked on an abstract, but using left and right hands, and then trying writing. I mean, although it's a simple exercise, I think we often do it in art classes. It's the approach, I think, that working with your non-dominant hand, because you have to slow down and use the other side of your brain. I think just that act, if you really pick it apart, is so important, and it gets you into the zone of what it would be like if you had lost the other limb, and rather than just dabble, really experience it. And when I say sense of being, is that, are you in that space? You know, you're trying to understand that mark making, and I think it takes you into a different dimension, and I think that is really important when you're working with someone who has got difficulties in movement and sensory difficulties. I thought for a second one we'd do something slightly different, so we can put that one aside. The second one is actually, you can use the concept of abstraction, but you can actually try and do a formal figurative, it's a portrait, self-portrait, but you're going to do it by just feeling around the face and drawing it by feeling the contours, as opposed to looking in a mirror or looking at a snapshot of yourself, which we'll do following that. So the first one is get to know your face, and see how your hand relates to the I suppose I call it, this proprioception and kinesthesia, two senses, and you know, that sense of touch here is relating to the sense of something moving in space, and we're doing it through our vehicle, which is, you know, the body. So let's try that out. I'll try a different track. Let me see. So we'll do about 10 minutes or so on that. And just so you don't get too bored, put some music on. So the idea is actually to explore the face and draw what you're feeling. So if you're feeling furry eyebrows, you know, that's how the pencil's going to move, and you're moving at the same speed as both hands, so the scale of it is going to come out the same. People feel they want to turn the music off, feel free to switch the sound down. It's just background. Okay, I think we'll terminate that one. It's reasonable. The ear was a bit complicated because as you're feeling around the ear, the temptation is you want to draw around the perimeter of the ear, and then I was actually going to turn the ear this way round, and it was going to end up like a Picasso drawing. But I think then if you're an experienced portrait artist, you know that this is going to be flat, so you should be, if I'm looking this way, it should be the projection that's the thing. So yeah, we'll stop at that point, and we're going to do one more. We'll move on to different limbs. So the purpose of feeling and moving, I had an opportunity to work with one chap who was blind from birth, and I asked him to draw a circle, and he had no concept of circle. So I thought I'd give him a roll of drafting tape, and he could put that down and draw around it. For us, it's like, hello, that's a cinch. And I gave him in one hand, and with the other hand, he couldn't conceptualize what a circle is, or even follow the pencil on a stencil. No one in his whole life had trained him to follow a stencil, and I couldn't believe, because he was he wasn't autistic or anything. He spoke and understood everything 100%. And the only way I could work with him was to be tactile and to actually convey what it feels like to hit an object and move around it, and how your physical sense transfers to a communication through, let's say, drawing or paint, or it just blew my mind that this person who was well spoken, held down a conversation, very intelligent, when it came to using his hands, and he was completely blind, he could not register a shape. And so I think this exercise, it's so difficult for us, and it just brought home to me that someone, he was about 50 plus, and no one had ever told him. I met another chap who had suffered a stroke, and he was 40, and we went through all these exercises using different hands, and we did a drawing. In the end, I said, I want you to sign the drawing with your left hand, non-dominant hand, because he had a stroke in his right hand, his dominant, so he drew the whole thing with his other hand, and he signed it. He said, oh, I wish I could have done this before, because I can't even sign my own checks. And I said, well, you just signed that. It took me 1 hour. And the guy, through all his life, thought, because this has gone, life is impossible. And, so I think art has the power to shift. You can spend months doing therapy on, is this dominant arm moving, but it's not going to get to fulfillment of life in a way maybe art can reach, and tactility and physical sensation, and that real sense, as a sense of being, that someone with a collapsed ability on one side of the body can actually gain a super ability by retraining the other side and go further than anybody else. It's at that level really that I try and work on a one-to-one, find what the problem is, where can you motivate, what's the trigger point, and how we're going to get to the next stage. So the last exercise, we'll see how time goes. So we're going to move on to feet. I love feet, and so we're going to put the pad or paper on the floor. If you have a cell phone, take a selfie and draw it with your foot. And I would start with your least dominant foot. Now you can wear a sock, or you can grip, and I've come prepared with flip-flops. So, and yeah, this is the awkward bit. I'm going to just lift my foot up there. And it doesn't matter if you're embarrassed about your feet. Everybody's feet have got bunions and things. So I like to just grab, and there's no technique that I'm using. I've just grabbed the pencil. Sometimes I hold it really loosely and draw it. But the only thing I would say is that when you grasp the pencil, make sure you can see the end of the point that you're drawing with. It's no good having a pencil here because you can't actually see anything but your foot. So extend the pencil and draw away. You can do it standing, you can do it sitting, whichever's most comfortable for you. And I'll turn the camera downwards so you, while you're doing yours, you can see me drawing away. So I'm just going to take a quick selfie on my phone. So just there, and I'm going to draw off that and hold that in front of me. I think for those people who might be listening in on this on their cell phones, it might be a bit awkward. In that case, draw something maybe geometric, like a chair or a vase or a flower that you're looking at. Okay, so selfie. Ta-da. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so we've got about 15 minutes or so on this one. So if I angle, the thing is, once I've angled the camera, I can't see. But there we are. Yeah. Let's try and bring it down here. How are we going to do this? Okay.
That looks good, Saranjeet. You can see that.
Yeah, I'm just going to tilt it just a little bit like this. There. That's a bit better, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, great. So we will. So I've got my little selfie here. Hold up. So I'm going to start. I am dominant right-footed. Helps to have a sharper pencil. Yeah, I think this is what pencil is this? Yeah, let's try it. So I'm using my left foot, which is the non-dominant one, and I'm seated. So like any sketch, I would sort of that you do a light sort of outline. The good thing is, as I've got older, my eyesight is obviously a bit short-sighted, and it's fantastic drawing it this way because I can see the drawing. Yeah, it's one of the... one question that was asked, I think Susie asked, is there a difference drawing in front of a live audience or if you're drawing on your own? And I would say the only thing is, when you're drawing with a live audience, the pressure is for you to create something quicker, so people, you might spend more time sketching out a light line, but people in a live situation want to see results quite quickly, and that really taxes your limbs. Seem to always have a frown on my face. And the beauty about having two limbs, if you're both able-bodied, if you're able-bodied on both sides, you know, as one gets tired, you can flip to the other foot, because cramp can set in quite quick. Although I think I prefer to use my my left for some reason, and some of you might discover that you're actually, although you might be dominant one side, you, from doing something like this, you discover you actually prefer the sensation of moving with the other side. Yeah. So I'm really sort of marking out positions of quite lightly. Hope everybody's getting on all right. Catch up. I'd be very pleased to see any drawings, you know, post the session. If anybody wants to post them online, Facebook or Instagram them, it'd be great. So once I've got the general line done, I try and then start to get into the darker lines, but it requires a bit more control on this. Well, I think that's about it's about 5:15 now. Let's see how people have got on. So the one on the brown is doing the sensory one, and the other one is obviously a right and left foot drawing. It'd be interesting to see how everybody got on, and can people hear me? Yep. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Hey, fantastic! Oh, excellent. Can you highlight office? Highlight the officer, end seed officer. Let's see a big. Yeah, be nice to see a big. Oh wow, excellent! I love the line quality. That is fantastic. That's amazing. Was it left and right foot or?
Yeah. That was so amazing. I've never done that in my life before.
And did you stand up or sit down?
I was sat down actually, yeah.
That's not bad. It's got a good range of movement. Yeah, fantastic.
That was brilliant.
It's painful though. My foot was hurting. You have to get used to it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I did the orangutan drawing, it was I always have to have a cup of coffee and a cake to start. It just sets me in the mood, plays some music, and I'm ready to. And then within the first 10 minutes, my foot started cramping. I thought, oh my, what have I taken on? And it took 8. Well, there were 2-hour sessions, and it's quite intense concentration, but there's a real relaxation. The thing it taught me also, when I did hand drawings as an architect, and I tried to do art drawings, I found myself doing what architects do, is show every piece of information in every line, and it's like so delineated. It's dry, it's not atmospheric, and I learned by using my feet that less is more. And I actually one reason being I wanted to show the construction of the drawing below, to show the whole range of movement. So in my drawings you'll see that I've left the most delicate of lines, and then the really controlled lines where I've gone over it several times to show that there's control in this huge limb. If you try and maneuver a leg around tiny movements. So in the observational sketches, it really does get a serious engagement with the piece. And like I said, if I had a disability and an impairment, I'd be putting the same effort in. It's the same effort, but the results, if we measure it on effort, then the results are the same. And you could give an adulation to someone who's putting so much soul and spirit into that content. That's where we're on
your whole body goes into it in a different way, doesn't it?
Yeah, in a different way. It's self-discovery. I mean, I saw a fascinating video clip on Facebook or YouTube where I think she's a Middle Eastern young girl, and all she lies on her side, one leg functions, and it's at 90 degrees to her body, and she draws with a foot, which is at an angle, and that's all that's moving her foot, and she draws portraits, and she can hardly see. That's the other thing about sensory deprivation. I mean, when I drew a skull with a pencil in my mouth, literally and you can't see what you're drawing. So then how is that happening? Is it memory, or do I know, can I sense an orientation? So all those things are embedded in those drawings.
There are a few questions, Saranjit, that have popped up, because we've just got sort of 10 minutes left. So if I everyone's been making lots of really interesting, some of them are comments, like Sally actually going right back to your building in Birmingham, that it's just really interesting to look at architectural drawings where you don't, because you don't normally see people in architectural drawings. So she commented on that.
Yeah.
But there are some questions, and actually linking with what you were just talking about, it's such a sensory experience. And I think it's Michelle asked actually how you would describe the sensation of going into that sort of different dimension when you let go of the dominant hand, because we don't want to, do we? Then when you do, it's quite interesting. And she found that very liberating. So she just wondered about, how you feel.
I would agree that there's a liberation. I mean, when I first, it was a portrait class, and I distinctly remember, I still got that drawing. I decided to draw the character with my left hand, and I really just relaxed, and I slowed down, and it came out better than my right hand drawing. It was so sensitive, and I concentrated on every single piece of, dust on charcoal or pencil dust on that, as opposed to the right hand. It doesn't want to stop on the journey. It just wants to do it,
more controlled.
Yeah, and the less dominant you go back to your sensory appreciation of your body.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was surprised. And then I'm thinking, is it because the left hand, right hand brain thing, as they say, the right hand is logical and it's about linear thing, because we cross wires, don't we? And the left hand isn't. So you think, well, is it that my right brain is much more sensory? And I'm trying to, when I was doing it, I was trying to experience what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, Lucy in the chat also comments, well, what she says is that was a brilliant session. Thank you, Sam.
Lucy.
And she'd never done foot drawing before. And actually she thought it was going to be frustrating, but in fact found it really relaxing, and it surprised her. So
yeah,
I think there might be quite a lot of foot drawing going on in classrooms this week now.
Absolutely. I mean, I gave this presentation to the university students, and there was one character sitting at the front, and he was just like, well, what's it all about? So drawing with your feet, drawing this. And then I sort of explained it in terms that he would actually benefit and understand. And I think he was a football player or something. And anyway, by the end of that 10-minute conversation I had, he totally flipped his viewpoint.
Yeah.
And for years, I've battled with a few things. 10 years ago, they said, why are you drawing with your feet? Why you're not disabled, and etc. And I never, in hundreds of sessions, has a person with a disability ever said anything, sort of that, well, why are you doing this? And never. If anything, it's able-bodied people on this, who are questioning, well, why are you doing it? And I think that one of the retorts I gave in a seminar was that, I do, like a lot of artists, we do crazy things, silly things, until they become serious. That's our pathway. To be on the surface, it looks foolish, it looks like play, but it's very serious. And if you approach it seriously, it's like a roadblock sometimes.
Yeah, and actually that really links to the question that is in the chat as well about process, because the play and the silliness is all part of that, isn't it? And so in the chat, this has been really helpful for focusing on process over outcome. How important do you think that is when making art?
Yeah, for me, that it's all about process and technique, and I think maybe that's I've always had a mind which likes to analyze how things are constructed and made. From when I was very young, I remember 10-year-old, I bought a book on how to draw horses, and it had construction lines, a circle and a limb, and that, I think maybe that affected me becoming, going into architecture or things like making things in woodwork, and from a drawing to a real thing, and I've always had that fascination about a drawing and where it leads to, and how the whole world is manifested through drawings, so they're really, really vital things in our, existence, really. if not the most vital.
Yeah. Well, because we talk all the time as our teachers, no matter what phase you're teaching in, about process being important, so that the outcome is individual, and it's everyone's perspectives, and actually, if you allow the process, it stops the I can't draw from a very young age as well. So,
and the other thing, Susie, that I would say is that people who old school was you master a technique and you become a master of that thing over a long period of time. We're into technologies now, and this dialogue that can you do it quicker because it's more, you can earn more money, or it's more efficient. Can you do it quicker? Can we get a gimmick to make us? But the value of that to us as human beings, I don't think is as equal to doing something with simple as a pencil and a paper, or making something with touch, because as human beings we need it. I'll tell you a little anecdote. Someone said to me there was, I think it was a Sky program in America. They wanted someone to do an illustration of a person of the future, and they said the person of the future would have no big toe, and they would have huge thumbs and a big head from sitting at the computer and typing. I'm saying, I mean, it's really moronic, isn't it? Are you saying people are going to stop dancing in the future?
it's true, isn't it? God, what a thought.
Simple as that. You know, I mean, where do people go? You know, we're not going to stop dancing. You need to.
And actually, I had one more question linked to dancing, because I know, I mean, obviously, when you did your residency, and in fact, I've noticed that I've just spotted Diane saying we have only got 4 minutes left. So it's a very quick final question. When you did the residency at Merle, and you were responding to the dancer, but was it completely mutual? She was responding to you, you were responding to her.
Okay, so how I've always been interested in how music, movement, form, architectural form, how these all interact and translate and work with each other. So I really explored Kandinsky's work back in the day, and he was breaking it down into components and this idea of a synthesis, how things come together. So rather than, I'm a practical person, so rather than a theory, I have to do the thing. So I studied lots of forms of dance, from ballet to contemporary to jazz. When I was at university at Bristol, I was part of the dance society, and I would just go to each class because it was like 30 pence to do a class. It was fantastic. And then I was trying to translate that. How would they make a building? And so form and its styling was one of the things I was interested. But then back from about 86, I went to a lot of dance classes in London when I was working in London, contemporary and jazz dances, but I was also part of the urban fusion dance movement in UK. And but on top of that, I joined a band, and they didn't have a percussionist, so I started playing percussion and doing live dance for them whilst working as an architect. So all these overlays, I was becoming this synthesis, what I call it. So I started looking at exploring how you can make music. So with working with any collaboration, I create the music. I was aware that Arwen was a contemporary dancer, so I created a piece. I watched her earlier work, so I created a piece that she would really get into. And it had different speeds, so I wanted her to move slow, medium to fast. And so I had thoroughly prepared it. But when I come to performance in a collaboration, I say there's no rehearsal. You're just going to do it. It's spontaneous. So I'm spontaneous in drawing your movements. What Arwen did when she came into that space, she said she was starting to do a warm-up, but then she realized all these drawings of figures, historical figures, and she started to resonate with them and emulate what the shapes were doing in the drawings. So she was responding to her environment. I'm trying to keep pace with her, and to draw a moving figure is really, really difficult. But because I know certain dance shapes and I know the body from lots of figure drawing, so I can try and do it in either some quick gestural lines because I know it, I can experience it, and I know contemporary dance. So she's not going to be rigid like a ballet, but she'll be relaxed shoulders, and the movements will be much more awkward and organic. So I understand the language.
It was so powerful to watch, to watch back at what you were doing together.
Oh wow, yeah. So, and she was responding. I think I was so tempted to go and dance, but I'd got sciatica, and I knew that my leg it wasn't going to happen, because she was also in the capoeira group later, which I was drawing them, and I created the music for capoeira, which is Brazilian based, and it had different dynamics. And by the end of that session, I wanted them all to be sweaty, so it was really fast. And by the end, they were just gone. So dynamics, I create the dynamics, but once we're in that space, there's a dialogue.
So good. Yeah. I've noticed it's 5:30, Saranju. I think the when done capoeira dancing is perfect, to be honest with you. So, I mean, I just want to say thank you so much. It's a really nice way to finish the summer solstice for me, and I can still go out and there's sun out there for a long time. So, but thank you so much. I think it's been really interesting, and it sort of challenges our practice, doesn't it, what you've been talking about? And I know hopefully somewhere, I don't know where, because you've got a website that people can have a look at and see your project.
I mean, so far I've just been documenting and dumping the stuff on Vimeo. I've got a YouTube channel with dance performance. I've got Axis website. Someone saw my website on Axis and said, well, what do you do? Because there's so much. What are you trying to say? I said, well, I'm trying to say everything. So what? Picasso, all right, what my fault as an artist and trying to build people, so people can understand me, who I am as an artist, what I do, is that I haven't been doing series of works, but now I've got, there's a thing coming up in November. It's got Bombed, a Moonlight Sonata. It's a series that's been going on for 12 years, and I've been looking at the notion of battle and war and bombing, dance movement and painting, live narrative. And then on the other spectrum, we got this very intricate drawing, which has an association with overcoming limitations and disability. So that's an offshoot.
So we would encourage anybody who's watching this live or looking back, do go and have a look at your website. I'm very conscious we're going to have to wrap up. A very big thank you from me on behalf of NSCAD, and it's been lovely to work with you again.
And people can drop me an email. It's just, I'm out there if there's future projects or whatever.
So I guess we can, if your attendees do, feel free to leave.